Welcome back to CTRL-ALT-DEV. This is part 2 of From Barrister to Vibe Coder, disrupting a 200-year-old industry with AI. And just a quick recap, in part 1 we explored what a will actually is, the market opportunity behind NovaWIL, and how Matthew used Lovable to build the first version of his application. So if you haven't listened to podcast 29, if you're on YouTube, you can click here. Or Spotify and Apple navigate to our podcast library or check out the notes. We discussed something we talk about a lot in software development, creating a proper product requirements document, a PRD, before you start building your project. That became the blueprint that allowed AI to generate the application correctly. And finally, we talked about the point where Matthew realized he needed an experienced software engineer to review what AI had produced, checking the security, validating the database structure, and helping turn a working prototype into something capable of becoming a commercial product. So before we start, Matthew, what's the difference between a lawyer and a shark?
I don't know this one, but it'll be something about they charge you after they chew you up or something like that.
One's a ruthless predator and the other's a fish. And I'll leave that one with you. So welcome back to CTRL-ALT-DEV, episode 31. I'm Sean Sale.
And I'm Paul Rhodes, sorry.
This is a podcast where we press control on the hype. It's all right, we're having a bit of a daft day today. Alt on the narrative, and Dev on what's really happening in technology, AI, and the business of actually shipping software.
Yeah, and if you're new here, we run 4 formats to this show. The deep dive, just 2 of us taking one topic apart properly. We have the guest interview, which is today, where we bring in people who are actually doing the work and let them tell the real story. We have our show and tells, where we open the laptop, we demonstrate how we're actually using AI and software inside our businesses today. And then we have the panel review, where we bring in several experts to debate one big topic from multiple viewpoints.
And we also occasionally release 2 bonus formats, the milestone episode, where we step back and look at where technology is heading over the next 5 to 10 years, and Press Control, which is our solo opinion episodes, where whenever one of us has something we think simply needs saying.
Yep, so no adverts on this episode, no sponsors. So if today's episode earns it, please simply share it with one other person who you think will find it useful. And that's our only ask.
And you'll find us on Apple Podcasts, as I mentioned, Spotify and YouTube. And if you've got a question you'd like us to cover in a future episode, email us at podcast@ggapps.co.uk or leave a comment below on YouTube.
Yep, so to today's episode, welcome back Matthew Turner from NovaWIL. So as we mentioned towards the end of episode 29, which was part 1 of this guest interview, that you eventually brought in an experienced software developer, Glenn, who's your CTO. And we actually met Glenn in a week, so that was amazing. And he's since become a shareholder in NovaWIL. So where in the process did Glenn come into the picture? And for the vibe coders listening out there, fundamentally, what prompted you to see that you needed it in the first place, to bring in an experienced person into the project? Yeah, if you could elaborate on that, please, Matt, that'd be a really good start to the show.
Yeah, of course. And I have to be completely honest about this. I knew I didn't understand code, but I was getting so far with Lovable that I guess I was in like a state of blissful ignorance, if I put it that way.
Best place to be.
It is really when you're vibe coding. But my wife, I don't know if we mentioned this last time, but my wife works in tech. She works for a US tech software startup, and has worked in software startups for the last 10 years. So she had much more knowledge than I did. And she kept saying, you need to think about security. You need someone to look at this. You need to go external before you're really rolling this out with real customers. And so it was because of her, to be completely honest. But I was put in touch with Glenn because he's my best friend from school's best friend from uni. But when I reached out to him initially, because Gabby had prompted this thinking, just to get a steer. I knew he was coding, I knew he was a developer now, and so I wanted to get his thoughts on what I should do around security. But we, totally hit it off. He loved the idea, loved the product, couldn't believe how far I'd got by myself. And it's come at the right time for him, bought into the vision, and he's now co-founder and CTO. But I do worry slightly if, Gabby hadn't been there saying, you need to do this, you need to do this. I probably would have continued in blissful ignorance, which wouldn't be.
So the actual realization of you've got a working prototype, but launching that commercial software product didn't actually come up until really Gabby sort of gave you that.
Yeah, I'm quite sort of gung ho and was charging onwards. And Lovable has its own inbuilt security features and scans, and I wasn't complacent. I was making sure I was running all of the Lovable scans. It was finding issues. I was trying to understand what they were and implementing fixes. But I now realize, having brought Glenn on and he's been doing what he's been doing, how that doesn't go far enough. There's obviously so much more that a developer brings, which is critical.
Yeah, and I think we touched on that, didn't we? Is like what that security scan is effectively doing is looking at the code that's written. But if the code that's written is not scalable, then it's kind of it does its purpose. But spec and build AI is incredible at. But like what Glenn brings is the full software development life cycle. Deploy the maintenance, the upgrades, all that sort of thing, which it's not in Lovable's wheelhouse. It's just saying we've produced this code. Whether that's spaghetti or efficient is irrelevant. We're just checking that there's no security holes in what we've produced. Whether it even meets your PRD is another question entirely. So it's like,
So it can only really work on what you've got, hasn't it? That's what we're saying.
Yeah, exactly.
Whatever you've prompted, it can only work on that, can't it?
Yeah, exactly that.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Okay, so Glenn came on board, and did he just simply sort of take over and sort of jump into the code, or did you guys discuss what he thought was the best way forward?
No, largely he just got stuck in straight away and jumped into the code. Initially through Lovable, but then through VSC and locally in GitHub. No, he got stuck in, immediately found certain issues, things around like password protection and security and authentication, stuff that I just didn't really understand at all. But he got stuck in straight away, fixed critical things, and we're now quite a few months in, and the product is in a totally different position thanks to him coming on board.
So it's interesting because, as you mentioned, vibe coders that potentially listening to this, there is a potential that they could launch their code and have all these issues without really knowing about it, isn't there? Which is a bit.
It's hard, is it? Yeah, and it's hard, isn't it? Because there's a tension between needing to move quickly, democratizing this world so that people with no coding experience but with good ideas and specialist knowledge or skills can get on and build MVPs, getting them in front of real customers to get real feedback as quickly as possible and iterate, but at the same time, mitigating all the risks associated with not having a developer on board. And I think I'm really lucky that we've managed those tensions really well now, in that I got as far as I could, then Glenn came on board. We're now in the position we are with real users and iterating, but I can very much see if Glenn hadn't come on board and I'd continued, there would be problems.
Yeah, and I think fundamentally, like, we joked about it, it put me off my stride sort of thing, but this place of blissful ignorance, that is like the other way I've heard it described just this week is, as a vibe coder, if I put myself into your shoes, you don't know what you don't know. So it's that thing of, it's all about functionality. It's all about planning ahead, and customer discovery is such a big part of launching any product. You are following, I don't know if you've ever read it, but you are following like the lean startup approach by Eric Ries and like Steve Blank's customer discovery. The fact is how you're executing is really impressive. It's those frameworks as well that if people don't have a knowledge of that, where I see vibe coders making some terrible mistakes is they keep layering on. They don't know what done looks like. They don't have like an MVP version 1. So like the AI is forever saying, would you now like me to do X? And so they just go, yes, please. That's a great feature. So when we look at it, you've got this like 50 feature prototype that they think they can just click publish and it'd be a 2-second thing, which you arguably can. But at the same time, it's like, well, what actually did you set out to achieve? and what actually is your business model. You know, do you even have like a lean canvas or a business model canvas underneath? So, I mean, just to digress really quick, we had another similar conversation to one we had the other week. Same thing, a lady who's come up with a product, and she's used Lovable, and she's got the prototype, but the exact same, you know, on the tin of it, yourself, Matt, and this lady are identical, you know, to us. They're both used, but she had no understanding of the size of the market. She didn't have any pricing strategy. She didn't know where she was going to take it and how longevity. She guessed that she could charge £20 a month for it, and by the end of the year, you know, she could sell it to 5 people. And it's like, okay, where is this actually, like, is this even worth investing your time right now if that's the level of scale you're thinking about? So I think it's this democratization is a really good piece, isn't it? Is the fact that there is a tool now where you can build something just to solve your own problem, like the meal planner for us. You know, you can do these quick wins, and at the same time you can launch what you've done is the MVP phase of the prototype is exactly what it's designed to do. You know, in the rule of lean startup, you should be going out and testing your first version, and it should be half a product. It should be like, it's just so people can say, do you have this problem? And is this the solution? And would you pay for it? Yeah. And a lot of people skip the would you pay for it part. Just like, do you have this problem? Yes. But if it's not important enough to pay, well, there's no business model there. Sorry, I totally digress, but it was just how it's the same product, same approach, but how you've gone so much further. Yeah. You know, we touched on last time about investment and stuff. I'm sure we'll come on to that. So it's that you've got an overarching strategy behind you is the difference. Go into vibe coding with a plan is the biggest thing. Have an end game, you know, start with the end in sight, isn't it?
I couldn't agree more. I mean, we touched upon this last time, but before I started in Lovable, I had written a business plan. So that thinking had been done, but you told me the term PRD last time, right? PRD. I didn't know that term, but I had spent a lot of time building what I'm calling the legal infrastructure for the product, which meant that I didn't just go into Lovable and say, I want to build a will writing app, let's go. I had a whole package of documentation that I built beforehand, which in substance would have been this PRD. And A, doing that, B, doing the commercial thinking around the business plan first, and C, also, you know, inspired by Hormozy, inspired by the lean startup, all of that thinking around how to succeed in this early phase and very quickly get to product market fit. All of that was in my mind when I approached this. And you know, looking back now, we're in a really good, it's so early, but we're in a really, really good position.
And I guess from what you've just described as well, one thing that, again, I'm trying to work out why you've had the success that you've had to date and what your plans are and stuff compared to the other people that I talk to. And that process that you went through of creating that business plan, what that all creates is clarity, doesn't it? Like you're doing the thing that the human needs to do, which is the clarity of thought. And it's that kind of, we always irk it, it's like 10-80-10. So you do all the thinking up front. You presumably as well use AI as a tool in that to make the creation of it. So the generative AI. But fundamentally, the human's driving the vision, and you're answering questions. You're coming up with the clarity of what you want to achieve. And ultimately, the coin term that we use a lot is like, you have a North Star. You have a sense of direction and know where you're going. And the reason that becomes so powerful is now you have a decision-making process, because then you can just say, well, okay, something's come along, an opportunity or a feature even, and you can literally ask the question, you know, will it make the boat go faster? You know, like, is this thing I'm about to do going to get me closer to that North Star or not? And so what I observe a lot is the vibe coders who've gone in and the way it's designed in Replit and Lovable is, what would you like to build today? And you literally said, like, I want to build a will writing app. You're making it up as you go. You've got something in your head, but you haven't taken a step to create the clarity. So then when it says, would you like to do ABC? It's yes to everything. And you end up with something that looks really, really impressive, but it's not aligned to a plan. It's not aligned to, well, who's the customer and what is the problem they've got? And some of the systems I've seen, the features that they have, I'm like, I sit there quietly and question, well, why have you put that in now? Why is that in your MVP? You know, like you're trying to build, and honestly, less is more. Like the less you build, the better you are in an MVP, because you're testing the core essence of, do you have this pain? Do you have a purchasing power to solve it? Is it a growing market? You know, the kind of 4 things that you need to think about.
Because that was in the previous podcast, wasn't it? You talked about the statistics of how many people, I suppose people is the right word, haven't got a will, and we talked about those figures that were absolutely huge. So you've got the landscape for that was fantastic. You know, you've taken, like we said, something that's been going for 200 years, a very old model, and you've looked at the statistics of how this could blow up for you, which is fantastic. As you said, Paul, sometimes people just go, "Oh, let me just do this for doing sake," and it's not about that, is it? It's about having having on paper, is this opportunity that we're going to build, is this going to actually work? And
it's much easier to change your paper plan than it is when you started to build.
Yeah.
Like I know Lovable makes it look effortless, doesn't it? You know, if you suddenly say, stop, you know, all this sort of thing. I mean, the thing I always recommend with people is if you go so far down the route with a prototype, as long as you've got your plan, you could change your plan and you could delete that project and just start again. That's the thinking that should be behind it, is rather than iterate inside Replit or Lovable, have your plan as your kind of like go-to guide.
It's like the bin in the corner, isn't it? You sort of, in the old days, you basically screw up that idea and throw it in the bin and start again.
You should be. Yeah, it should be a playground at this point. And I think the analogy of the building work, you know, if you start, I've never worked in the building trade, so listeners will probably start shouting at the thing about me getting this horribly wrong. But I would assume that you draw up architectural plans and you start to build, and then something becomes an issue. I assume they would go back to the architectural plans and revise them. They don't just end up with like a door in a different place with no documentation as to why that door is in a different place. And I think one thing that people do poorly is they treat their plan not as a living document that iterates and you becomes version 50. You know, they create version 1 and they leave it. Then it's like, you know, it's a classic thing if they put it in a filing cabinet and never open it again. And the sense I get is you should have version 50 of your plan. And then when you get to things like investor deck, that tells a story as well.
Yeah,
that's a huge thing, because an investor is ultimately invested in the leadership team as well as the product. Yes. They're invested in who's running this, how are they running it? It's a de-risking strategy, isn't it? It's ultimately they're trying to de-risk their investment.
It's been so fun to live that experience that you've just described, because I wrote a business plan last sort of autumn, and it was all hypothetical at that point. It was all based on my market research, my idea for the product, my conversations I'd had with potential customers. And then I started building the product, and then took it to real customers, and then got feedback, and then iterated. And now, 7 months later, I have recently returned to the business plan and been up. You know, some bits are totally redundant now, and they're gone. They're in the bin, as you say, Sean. Other bits, I'm like, wow, we've gone even further than I had here. And other bits that were hypothetical are just, they're now real. And so at the moment, we've been turning that document I drafted last autumn into, you know, the short form business plan based on what we have currently, and the investor deck. And it's brilliant. But earlier we were talking about the kind of lean startup theory and getting to the customers quickly, testing product market fit. There's a real tension there. Like, it was so hard to take what you know isn't ready, isn't perfect, isn't good enough to early customers, but it's so important.
Yeah,
but I knew that I needed to do that just because of, you know, reading the Lean Startup, reading other business books. I'm a massive listener of Guy Raz's How I Built This podcast, and you hear these entrepreneurs time and time again say, it's horrible, but you got to move quick. You've got to get there and and they'll say your baby's ugly, but there's nothing like learning from the customers.
Yeah, I think it's Steve Blank who says that, like, his big mantra is get out of the building, like no answers to the solution. You know, ultimately, what is it? If you think about the fundamentals, the market decides the value of your product. So internally, we all think it's amazing. And actually, all the answers exist outside the building or whatever, the virtual team. So it is so important. Like, if you don't think your product's ready to show to somebody else and start to get feedback, it's probably the perfect time to do it,
Yeah,
because
it is,
it's much better to find that and then a polished thing. And then I don't know if you've ever read it. There's a really good book called The Mom Test by Rob Fitzpatrick.
It's here on my desk.
Have you got it?
Our library is just the same, Paul.
It's such a good
same library.
It's such a good book though, and it's basically so it's part of like the Steve Blank methodology. You have like customer discovery, customer validation, Sean, and it's just interview processes for like doing these. So like the question is, okay, so I've got a demo. So how do I interview? How do I conduct these customer interviews? And but it's the adage
your
of
friends and family lie to you.
Yeah. Well, you won't go and ask your mom, or loads of people do. So loads of vibe coders will be going, I've built this, and then they go and ask their mom what their mom thinks of it. And the fundamental thing is your mom is not your market. You know, she'll tell you look beautiful even when you look ugly. She'll tell you the hair and all this sort of stuff. So the worst people to ask for any opinion of a business venture or a product is your friends and family, because they will tell you what you want to hear. And equally, they might be kind of harsh with you for your own benefit, but they're not the purchaser. You know, they're genuinely not the market you're trying to target. So it's this thing of, and I've found as well, if you have, say, we did a thing years ago where we were selling to digital agencies, and I know quite a lot of digital agencies. So I was going in doing demos and giving myself pats on the back and X, Y, and Z with digital agencies, but they were in the friends category. And it was kind of, it was without them even knowing all over, there's bias, isn't there? So then when we started doing it with completely cold audience and getting customer interviews, it changed massively. And that's who you're selling to. You know, like a lot of people build stuff for friends and family. You can't get a better kind of test of the market than to do it cold. And with today's technology and LinkedIn and being able to identify markets, if it's B2B, that's what you want to be doing. Sorry, Matt, you're going to say.
Well, asking people to pay. Asking people to pay is
that's the ultimate validation point, isn't it?
Even friends, even people in our network who we know need wills, who we bring to them with a proposition. If they hadn't paid, we wouldn't be here probably.
And that is genuine. That's such a valid point, because ultimately a lot of people go on probably for too long with an idea, because in the first round, oh no, we give it away for free. You're not learning. You are learning something, but you're not learning anything around price points and X, Y, and Z. You're not really learning anything about the true market if you're giving it away for free. People do not value free, and you'll find that your feedback is weak as well, I think. So it's kind of like, unless you're doing a Facebook where you're going to scale something based on the freemium model, but most businesses we talk to are vibe coding, have a subscription button, and they have an amount they want to charge, and you ask them, how have you come to that pricing point, and they shrug. Well, it's almost like, well, that's what I pay for, totally unrelated. It's like, well, what's the value of doing this to your customer? And they might be unknowingly massively underselling it. They might be fixing £100,000 problem in a business, and they could be charging 10 grand a year.
People don't perceive, like as you say, perception of something free means it's not really worth looking at, is it?
Well, there's no investment from them, is there? So there's no time investment. So if you give me something free, I'm going to put my time value on it as I'll get round to it.
When I can.
If you make me pay 750 quid a setup fee, I'm going to diarise some time in my diary to get the setup done. Yeah. Does that make sense? So it's like...
let's just move on to prototype to product, because this is fantastic where we're going. Yeah. So where is NovaWIL today then? So you've obviously brought Glenn on board. Yep. He's gone through the code. He's fixed some of these issues like the security. Looked at the code to make it scale. So where are you now in the journey?
I sort of calling this MVP plus. We've got our platform, our product that is now safe, secure, and stable post Glenn's input. Legally sound, because not only, did I as a lawyer prepare all the documents, write it, craft it, but also I've had sign off from an independent firm of solicitors who specialize in wills, and some weeks ago have brought on a specialist will solicitor who's now in-house, and she's been helping craft the product too. So it's similar to Glenn, sort of, on the tech side. I also wanted a real specialist on the wills side, with me in the middle, and with all those bases covered, the the product's great now and working. We're still iterating and we're still finding bugs and fixing them, and we're still talking to every single customer, and we're still reviewing every single will manually. And if any issues arrive, in the last week, we've had our first customers who we didn't know and didn't reach out to, which feels like a significant
cold
cold customers essentially.
Great.
But right now we're reaching out to them. We're not just letting them. I mean, they came, they had perfect flows, they bought the product, but we're still trying to call or email them afterwards to say, can we have a chat? Can we get some feedback and make sure this is right for you? Even though we know it is, but it's.
Do you track where they came from?
No,
Do you ask them just like, how did you find the product?
Yeah, we ask them.
Have you got CTRL-ALT-DEV on there as an option?
Once we will probably come onto the go-to-market strategy, but once we start doing all our social media, we'll have tracking and pixels and all of that. We've got post-hog for analytics.
And in terms of the roadmap, because obviously being in the software mindset, we would obviously we'd already planned for when you're going to go live. Have you always had that in mind, or has that kind of extended a little bit now because of what you've learned so far?
We've moved from alpha to beta. So there was alpha phase, which was basically testing, iterating with friends and family in our network. Still paying customers, still people who needed wills, still making sure that, still giving them a product that they actually need and pay for and is important, and protects them and their loved ones. But people we were close enough to that there was lots of sort of, if anything went wrong, we know them, they know what stage we're at, etc. But we've now moved past that into it's beta. So every user who now comes to the platform is a beta user, not an alpha user, and our pricing has increased accordingly. But we're not done a hard launch yet, because obviously we're still pre-funding and we're now focused mostly on the fundraise, as well as scaling and growing at the same time. Those probably our two core things at the moment. But the
so you've got the application, you've got the prototype, you've got the beta application, and you now are looking at investment. That's really where you are.
Yeah,
yes,
essentially. Okay. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. And we've got our roadmap, and we've got our sort of first version of our investor pack together with all our financial projections. And in terms of traction, I mean, we've got 60 plus accounts created, 50 plus wills made, X £1,000 in early revenue. Now starting to have users who have come not through us reaching out to them and trying to proactively convert them. And we've sort of entered into our first partnership distribution agreement. So there's a local firm of insurance and mortgage brokers here in Lichfield who we've entered into a distribution partnership with, where they will refer to us. We've got that commercial relationship for distribution, and that hopefully will be the first of many. So yeah, it's early days, but super exciting currently.
Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, the one thing I'd flag at this point is just it's that mindset piece. It's the fact that you've embraced it. Like, one of the challenges I've always found over the years, we've been doing this and working with founders, is sometimes you meet a founder and it's like they don't want to show anybody anything. They don't want to release anything. They just want to go and get investment and then build. Yeah. Obviously, Lean Startup tells the story of why that doesn't work, or is really rare. That is your moonshot prize, isn't it? Really,
go and approach your competitor and tell them what you want to do and see if they'll buy it. Not a or take your idea, not a jar.
Yeah, exactly. So I think it's worth flagging for the listener. What Matt has described is almost like it's that combination of, isn't it, of Hormozy, Eric Ries, Steve Blank. It's like a melting pot in your head. You've embraced those principles and those frameworks. And then when you hear about you've got the North Star, you know the next step on, like the next milestone on that plan, you know where you're going. All of this comes from embracing that simple concept of like validate, iterate, kind of improve, isn't it really? And I think, whether you call it Kaizen or whatever, Lean Startup, it's like, it's really commendable. And I think it's rare. It's like a lot of people read the books, not a lot of people implement it. It's very easy to read a book cover to cover. It's a very different thing to actually have the mindset to execute. It's a massively different thing. So it was just to praise you, really, Matt, and say I think it's incredible.
Yeah,
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Well
It's still look. We could crash and burn in a year.
No, but that's also part of startup life, isn't
check.
it? That's the thing is, even joking aside, like, is this weird thing, isn't there, in America, like exploring ventures and trying to scale and then crashing and burning is seen as almost like a badge of honor.
Yeah,
it's like investors won't, they're looking for those things. They're looking for that track record of, is this your first venture of scaling, or is it your 10th? And obviously you would need to have some successes in there. I don't think if you had 10 failures in a row, it might. But yeah, not, all the stories we hear about the megapreneurs, like your Musk and that, we hear about all the successes, but like if we go more to the startups that have done it, they often have backed projects in the past and it hasn't worked, and then they've become extremely wealthy and they back people through startup programs, and it's a 1 in 10 is an amazing thing. So I think it's having that mindset of, you're constantly evolving, you're constantly developing this product, but what you're actually doing is developing yourself. It's a personal development journey. And then your ability, whatever you do in the next 3 to 5 years, even if the worst was to happen, if you're able to, with a UK psychology, dust yourself off and go again, oh my God, you'll learn so many lessons and so many things you would do differently. And I think it's a weird I mean, we obviously know why we're different to the Americans. That's a different podcast. But like, I think in the UK, it's kind of seen as a do not fail. Yeah. And that's a very different, and I think that's the wrong pressure. The pressure should be experiment, iterate, learn the lessons.
Fail your way to success. But that's something that's something we learn at school, isn't it? That failure is actually considered to be terrible. But as you
everybody gets a badge or a ribbon at sports day, don't they?
Yes.
So that's again a totally different podcast.
They never used to, did they?
Well, it's this thing of like winners and losers, isn't it? Is a very frowned upon thing now. You don't have that in schools. You don't have that in our culture. And actually, what you're doing is putting your head up. You're saying, I'm going to succeed at this. And then other people will look at you in a negative space, go, oh, well, I don't think you should be doing that. You should be focused on this. And other people will be jealous and all these reasons and everything else. And then you're doing it and you're delivering. But if you come across a stumbling block, one of the biggest things as well is, I don't know if you use like Google OKRs or KPIs, but like, you need a do not continue KPI. And then what I learned in my journey was, it's much easier to say pause than cancel. So we got to a point 4 years down the line where we were battling away at trying to get to this thing. And I kept saying, if we don't hit this measure by like September or whatever, and I kept moving the goalpost because I was so invested in it. When I made the decision, finally, I spoke to somebody else who'd gone through like a failure of a startup, and he was like, he just said, use pause, don't cancel. So I decided to pause it. We never restarted it again, but that gave me permission because it doesn't feel like I'm closing the whole project. And then it was just when I finally then, after 3 months wound it all down, it was that thing. If you look back, you go, I should have done this 2 years ago. So I learned a massive lesson in like, even when it's, I mean, I don't think you will come across this, but you'll have other ventures where you go and you go and you go. And it's like, how do you time when to stop? When is it not working? When do we not get growth? And obviously the investment will give you a huge rocket into the future in terms of you get that funding. So that's I mean, I was bootstrapping everything. So that's the difference I faced. But they're just little anecdotes really, thinking about where you're at and what you're trying to do.
I don't want to fall into that trap of continuing a sort of slow death. And also, I appreciate you saying like credit to you for doing what you've done so far, but it still feels really early. And I also have a lot to lose. Like I'm walking away from a good, growing, successful career and haven't been earning since February, got a house, got a daughter. I'm not in my 20s and trying to set up a startup. So that I think that pressure is healthy.
It is, yeah, definitely healthy.
I also think it means we need to be really alive to, if this is failing, we need to know sooner rather than later.
I didn't realise that. So I assumed you were a practicing lawyer still, as in like in the, doing these cases. I didn't realise you'd gone, as we call it, all in.
I haven't taken a case since February.
Wow.
See, that's if I look at our journey as a business, we did exactly the same thing. Obviously, we didn't have AI then, but we weren't doing this on the side. We just jumped in and started off.
I couldn't do this as a part-time thing. It wouldn't succeed.
I think that's why you two have succeeded and I've failed throughout, because I've always tried to bootstrap it on the side, and the closest thing I got to as well, given where I went kind of semi all in, but I was still running. I'm still founder dependent in GGA, if that makes sense. So I never got to the point where I only focused on one thing. And I think it's a really valid thing for the listeners. Yeah, if you are going to set your North Star and you know the steps to go to it, I think the fact that you've gone all in is huge, because it's healthy from the pressure that you're feeling as well. It will get you to make better decisions, because you can't afford to be lackadaisical about it. You can't afford to do this with a part-time mentality. You're not going to get there someday. You need to get here by September and here by December on your plan. And it all goes back to that business plan you've put together. That will be interlaced with that for you, will be the emotion and the pressures you feel in terms of, like you said, family and home and everything else.
You've mentioned the North Star quite a few times now, and I can't move on without telling you what as is. I don't think I did last time. And let's see if this resonates with you. But the North Star that we are laser focused on is the Monzo of Wills.
Okay.
Do you instantly get that? Do you instantly get what that means? I'm curious.
Well, so I use Monzo, so it's self-service, easy to use banking that I use on an app. There's no bank. There's no. So in your world, you don't have to go to a will writing firm. You just download an app. You complete the function, the transaction, and it's basically self-service wills.
Dragging an old-fashioned B2C industry into the 21st century, kicking and screaming, with a modern, mobile-first, digital-first, primarily online platform, with beautifully crafted, with amazing attention to detail and UX experience that offers so much value to the user along the way,
so
as well as being quick and easy.
So 5 years ago, on every tech accelerator, you would have said, "We are the Uber of wills." That's what everybody said 5 years ago. So you've just switched it to Monzo, which is a bit more financial. That's good.
But also Monzo's vision of a modern bank is, it's more than a bank. It's a modern marketplace, a modern digital marketplace, and you see them putting that into practice now, where you have all your different investment pots, and you can now bring your pensions onto Monzo. They just bought Habito for mortgages, and in 5 years' time, an exit to Monzo would be amazing.
How do you see
a will writing function would be an obvious.
Just on looking back at your journey then so far, because how long has this whole process taken you? I don't think we actually asked that question, have we? About from the point of view of your business plan to where you are right now, how long?
Last May is when we came up with the idea. So we're a year.
It's just over a year,
but I've only been working on it full time, stopping my barristering work since February.
Okay, so here's another question then. So looking back, is there anything that you've done to date that you would have done differently, or are you quite happy with the way the whole process has gone? Because we commended you on the fact that it seems like everything you've done has been so good in the planning stages. Has there anything that's kind of triggered you that's gone, I could have done that differently?
I would have loved to have moved faster, even faster. I would have loved to have had a Glenn from the start, not just because of his technical expertise, but to have a buddy. And there's the fact that we're combining our complementary skills, which is brilliant, but also just, a partner to do this with.
It's a lonely world being an entrepreneur, isn't it?
Oh, yeah. yeah. I think those are the two things. And I mean, that's the value of things like Y Combinator it's hard to. I've been so lucky to find Glenn. And I sort of knew I needed someone, knew I needed a buddy. But
I actually used you.
Yeah.
I used you in a work. I used you in a workshop we did. So we did a workshop on Tuesday for Beta Den, and there's basically it was about vibe coding, and we did part one was about what is vibe coding, how do you build stuff in Replit and Lovable, and then part two was about production. And then somebody during the kind of latter half of it asked a question, And it just came out of my mouth before I even thought of the answer. And I just said, get a CTO. Like they had a very, and it's this classic thing of is if you predate AI, you predate, you go back to the lean startup and everything else. What you typically makes a perfect marriage in software development, in a SaaS product, is you have a technical expert, i.e. yourself, you know the industry, you know the pain points, you know the market, you're the visionary of the product. But then it's normally a technical product. So you need a CTO. And I think doing that as early as you did is, going back to your question about speed, it will only be an accelerant. It obviously has to be the right person. I think where people struggle with CTOs is where they do it purely on sweat equity and they're strangers and they're building trust and relationships. It takes a long time to trust somebody if you don't know. The fact that you're going back to through personal networks and you get on so well, that's what you mean about you're really lucky to find Glenn. But I think it's really good advice for anybody who's in that space where they're building something with vibe coding. They don't know what they don't know. Honestly, the route of going down the route of finding a technical partner is exactly the best move you could possibly make, because you've taken your prototype through to, you've taken your vision through to a prototype. Now you get into the technical thing. It's like you wouldn't go and build a house if you've never built a house before without architectural plans. You get all these DIY home builders, they still go and get a blueprint. Does that make sense? They still get an expert in a field. They know what they want to do and all this sort of thing, and they still lean on experts as they go. So the other thing that you'll start to form is a leadership team, and you'll probably have non-execs on that, and you'll probably have a combination of different skill sets. So a big part of your strategy, you become the recruiter. If you listen to Bartlett and stuff now, what he's actually saying is when he's scaling his businesses, his job is to recruit A players. And obviously that takes a budget. But it's you as the founder, you go from the visionary and the strategist and the salesperson basically through to the head of recruitment. And your job is to get the best players on board that you can to accelerate. So it all goes back to speed, doesn't it? It all goes back to, well, if your one change would be the speed you need. And it's funny, isn't it? We live in a world of AI and we're still saying it's people. So people try and build speed with just pure AI agent teams. And there's an argument, the first £1 billion company with one employee will happen. But does that one employee know the answers to every discipline that's needed? Because AI is only going to help you prompt what you give it right now. It is becoming a bit more self-dependent, but there's gaps where you wouldn't need to hire and you can fill it with an AI HR thing and all this sort of stuff, and it'll get you so far, but you will get to a point where people become a critical part of your speed. So
thinking back to that, when I was by myself to where we are now, it's happened quite quickly, but it was really stressful, especially when Gabby was pointing out, you don't know how code works, you don't know these things. It was stressful knowing I needed expertise on that front. It was stressful knowing I needed expertise on the Will side. And then it became really stressful knowing we ultimately needed expertise on the marketing side. And it took so long to build the product and get it right and test it and product market fit. We're now at the phase where it's all about the go-to-market strategy. But the team has emerged quite quickly, really, in the last few weeks. We've got, obviously, me and Glenn, co-founder and both co-founders, CEO and CTO. Yeah. We've got Gabby, my wife, who's still involved as a director and helping a lot as much as she can. But now we've got our in-house Will solicitor, who's now part of the team on the inside, and that's invaluable. And we're in discussions with a fractional CMO. And probably have our marketing agency lined up too. And it feels like all the pieces are just starting to fit together.
It's team building.
Subject to funding.
Yeah. And it's, again, you're doing it in the right way in this fractional sense. It would be a huge commitment to take somebody on and build a team. I mean, that's where investment comes in largely, is to build the team as well as the tech. But to do it in a fractional sense, to get a day a month from a CFO and stuff like that is invaluable. Mm-hmm. It's interesting, isn't it? You go from, if we talk in a really plain sense, your journey, as I would summarize it, has been vision and planning. Then you go to build with Lovable. Then you go to kind of like technical focus, which is with Glenn. Like now we've got a prototype. How do we get it to production? You've done that.
Before that, the testing and iteration.
Testing as
Yeah.
well.
Yes. Yeah. And then you've got the kind of team building and the investment side, which is scaling the business properly so that it can cope with demand. And aligned to that, you'll have a sense of figures of how many like wills you need to sell.
Yeah.
You know, it's all interlinked, isn't it? You know, the green flag to hire internally that position is based on us getting to this number of paying wills. Yeah. And it's
So finally then, Matthew, obviously everyone needs a Glenn. We've obviously mentioned that. If someone is watching today with a great idea, so they're listening to this podcast, Matthew, but they've got no technical background, what would your honest advice be to them?
Yeah, two things. One, do it. Definitely do it. Like, go for it. That's half the battle, more than half the battle. But at the same time, plan it. And that doesn't have to be a long, detailed business plan, but it does have to be some work. I would definitely warn against anyone going to Lovable and trying to build it without, what we're calling the PRD, without sitting down and putting in a Word document or a series of Excel spreadsheets, whatever form it takes, the basic structure of what you want to build, because otherwise you just essentially all you'll get is a front website. You won't get a platform. But beyond that, go for it. And there's the inherent tension all the time between taking the right steps and going quick and acting quickly. But it's about sort of surfing that wave all the time, I think. Also, I mean, what do I know at this stage?
You know a lot. You know more than you give yourself credit for.
That's kind, but I feel like we're the mount. There's a mountain to climb, and we're not even in the foothills. Like we're still, there's so much.
No, it's been brilliant. It's been brilliant again, Matt. I mean, if any of our listeners want to support NovaWIL, because obviously, I mean, can they look at the beta? Can they help you through the process?
100%.
Okay. So
yeah. Sorry, I jumped.
No, that's all right. And we can obviously you can share a link, can you? And we can.
Yeah, we can update the show notes. So we'll make sure there's all links in there and stuff.
My call out would be if you're listening and you've not sorted your will yet, go and try the platform. Because you'll get to see the product and experience the product, which will be interesting if you've got to the end of listening to this podcast or all the way to the end. But B, you can. We've still got beta pricing, so it's probably the best deal on the market currently because it's cheap and quick and easy, but you also get the sort of white glove treatment afterwards while we're still reviewing everything manually. And follow us on social media, which is at NovaWIL UK or at Matthew Turner Barrister. And if there are any investors listening, potential investors, then reach out to us. The email's on the website. And we're having those conversations right now.
Amazing. So that's Matthew Turner from NovaWIL, our guest today. Thank you so much for joining us, Matt. We genuinely wish you every success with NovaWIL and the next chapter. Thanks. And everything, obviously, that comes afterwards.
Appreciate it, guys. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And to our listeners, if you're sitting there with a prototype or you've got an idea, you heard it from Matt, jump in. You just never know. And hopefully today's conversation has shown what's possible. AI has dramatically lowered the barrier to entry, but getting something into production still requires experience. As Matthew says, planning, good engineering, and asking the right people for help. If you'd like to chat through your own idea or prototype, we'd be more than happy to have that conversation. Just get in touch.
Yeah, that's it for episode 31. If you found today's episode useful, just a reminder, send it to one person who'd enjoy it. Thank you for listening. Take care, and we'll see you on the next episode of CTRL-ALT-DEV.
Until next time.
Hey, guys.